Thanks, everyone. It's great to see so many people still here with us today. First of all, I'd like to thank Isabella and the Simba Events team for the kind invitation to come out and speak to you all. It's my first time in China that I've traveled here. It was, and I managed to get down to the Bund yesterday and look across at the skyline in Shanghai. And it's quite interesting that we're holding an innovation forum in probably one of the most futuristic-looking skylines I've ever seen. So that was really, really a good place to hold this today. Oh, there we go. Great. So as Marcelo said, when I got the invitation to travel out here, I thought, well, I'm flying 5,000 miles from London to Singapore. One, I'd better come with an interesting story, and secondly, I should make sure it's a happy one rather than anything sad. So, love, revolution, and a hen named Freeda. Our story starts with love, and before I get to that story, I'd like to tell you another story that I read in the Guardian newspaper a while back. It was written by a journalist called Oliver Thring. See if this jogs any of your memories. Every autumn, the Shangjing River drops. It's based in, the river's in Hubei in, I believe, eastern China. Hopefully I'm right over there. When it drops, all of the surrounding lakes turn into these very thick bogs. And what happens is every day, hundreds of men arrive in little boats to wade through these thick bogs. And what they're actually looking to do is to hand harvest a plant called the lotus root. Now, I'd never heard of the lotus root. I didn't know what it was used for. Apparently, it's a key ingredient in loads of Asian cuisine. The show, I don't know if any of you are familiar with where it came from, is A Bite of China. It isn't on TV in Europe or the UK yet, unfortunately. But what it is probably one of the most beautiful and fascinating food programs I've ever seen. And for any of you who haven't seen it, please watch it, because what it does, and we have a lot of food programs in the UK, what A Bite of China takes is it takes all of the emotive stories up from behind the people who create the ingredients, from the people who gather, harvest the ingredients, and tells you every little bit of detail and all of that emotion and love. And for me, it made me, one, want to come to China. That's why I'm here today. And also to just try more Chinese cuisine as well, and Asian cuisine, because it just gives you a start of kind of, there's such a level of interest behind each of the stories. It almost takes something as humble as a lotus root and turns it into something that you can love as an ingredient. So, a question. Why are brands loved or rejected in a blink of an eye? It's a good question. And when people are in front of the shelves and they're looking at your brands, there's a great quote by a famous artist called Paul Klee. He was a artist in the Bauhaus period in the mid-19th century. And he said, "One eye sees, the other feels." And I'll explain that a little bit for you. When we're looking at something, there is hundreds of cognitive connections being made in the brain, subconsciously, for what we're looking at. So we are seeing a color red. Our brain is saying, what is that linked with? For some people, it's linked with passion. For some people, it's linked with danger. For some people, it's linked with warmth. All of those little details are being made without you even thinking about them, by past experiences, past connections you have with your brain. Just to let you know, kind of, when we're talking about a blink of an eye, bear with me while I get the technology right. The real average time is 3 seconds, and that's what data says. That's how long a consumer is spending in FMCG at shelf looking at your product. It's a very short period of time. The brand part of that 3 seconds is less than a second. So in a second, they've decided whether to choose you and engage with your brand or to move on to the next one. Just worth considering the next time you want to put a few more messages on pack and you're having a word with your design consultancy to do that. What is really interesting, whether you're a rocket scientist, whether you're a builder, whether you're a homemaker, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, when people are standing in front of shelves, we're all the same. We all have the same desires and needs. We're looking for something to satisfy our hunger. We're looking for something to quench our thirst. We're looking for something to feed our family. And all of those desires and kind of needs can be answered, but they have to be answered with an emotional metaphor. Emotion sells in the world of brands. We say a brand isn't a brand at all unless it's got an emotive metaphor behind it. You're just selling a product. Now then, it'd be interesting to see if you were paying attention earlier. I've got a kind of similar chart to one Marcelo shared with us. This is an illustration. I'm going to give you back to that 3 seconds to find the green square. You got it? And hopefully, did you see the blue circles? Hands up, who was watching earlier on? A few people did. A few people didn't. It's a very good example of if your product is sitting next to that green square, it can look different. I mean, there's only 2 blue circles, by the way, on either side of the blue square, as Marcelo said earlier on. You can look different and you can be different, but if it's not what consumers are looking for, they'll walk straight past. And the challenge for every blue circle is to become the green square. And I'm going to show you through a case study today how we can get to that. So there are Dr. Helen Fisher of Rutgers University highlighted 3 stages of love. There's lust, attraction, and attachment. I'll take you through the 3. Lust is a momentary, meaningless connection. We call it a one-night stand. It's when brands are on promotion. If you're giving yourself away, people will take it, but they won't respect you in the morning. The next stage up, attraction, it's okay until something better comes along. We tend to deal with brands that are in this level are offering something functionally different. So it's whiter, it's fresher, it's crisper, and with functional benefits, you're only better until something better comes along. And unfortunately, those people will go with something better. Obviously, the challenge and the key thing to get up to is attachment. That's that lasting emotional connection, soulmates. That's where you become the green square. That's when you become a brand that's worth queuing around the block for when you launch a new iPhone. Or it's a brand like, I think earlier in the day we saw Oreo, that you can use as an ingredient and it's got that much love that people will buy ice cream because it's got Oreo in, or they will buy other products just because of that ingredient. So brand love, and this is, people always ask, well, what is brand love? How do I get it? It's to be understood and desired in an instant. And we spoke about that instant. It's less than a second. So unless you can capture people in that second, they're gone and they're moving on to the next brand. This is a simple brand love test we run at Springetts. And we put every brand we work with through this. And it's there's only 3 things on it. And probably in all the 20 years I've worked in branding, if a brand's failing, it's probably due to one of these 3 things. Firstly, it's about being distinctive. And that isn't just about being a different color for someone else. That's knowing your difference in a category. What are you doing above that category to stand out? It's no good just being a beer in a beer category, or it's no good just being a biscuit in a biscuit category. What's your key difference? What are you offering consumers that is different? Secondly, grab attention. With the chart we just showed, there's a lot you can do to grab attention. You can do things with shape, with packaging, with color, with messages, with brand naming. But it's all about gaining that impact at point of exposure. And lastly, engage. It's no good grabbing attention. It's no good being distinctive unless you start to engage with consumers. And by engage, we mean actually telling them that compelling story. So back to our happy egg story, and I'm going to show you where we had to create brand love. This was it. Not a very inspiring looking shelf, as you probably agree. This very grey, green, soulless world. Grey was barn eggs, and green was free-range eggs. And Noble, who are the UK's largest egg supplier to retail, they supply all the top retailers, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda's, and so on. They came to us with a very simple brief. In fact, it was probably the simplest brief I've ever had in my career, because it was only 5 words. And it was, "We want an egg brand." And that was it. I turned the page over to see if there was any more, and there was nothing. So as we said, a very challenging brief, but nonetheless, it got us excited, because as we approached this category, we realized that there was nothing there. There was no brand who was doing anything trying to kind of grow the category or push it. Everything was just being reduced. So they needed an egg brand. What we needed was a revolution in that category. So what we started to look at, and this is forgive me, you've probably seen a lot more busy charts. This is a very simple chart. It's simple for a reason. Number one, I dislike busy charts intensely, because they tend to just kind of add confusion to what you're trying to say. And secondly, it does everything we need it to do. And that is great creative. If we start from the top, great creative work can only be great if it comes from very focused strategic thinking. And focused strategic thinking only comes from when you've got very clear category insight. Now, it may seem a very simple ladder on that one, but it's amazing how many brand owners come to us with, "We just need design," or "We just want some strategy." And without all three, you can never get to that great creative, innovative idea. You will only get to pretty pictures on a piece of packaging. So it is important that everything needs a foundation of some very insightful category insight. So back to our happy egg story. This is where we started with category insights. We did a lot more than this. I've got a few to share with you today. Fascinating world, it turned out, the world of hens and eggs. Firstly, we looked at provenance. And like in China, in the UK, we have different areas. And we explored the possibility of, well, if chickens came from different areas, can we do something with local eggs from different areas? So different parts of the UK with different eggs. Breed was the next thing that we explored as well. Very interestingly, different breeds of chickens lay different coloured eggs, lay different sized eggs. So we started to look at all of that. Does that make a difference to purchase? Feed, along the top, there was another very interesting one. And just to be probably a little crude at the moment, but hens are very fascinating creatures. Whatever you put in one end comes out of the other end. So take, for example, if you fed a chicken a protein-rich diet, you would get a protein-rich egg. If you fed a chicken an omega-3 rich diet, not only would it be good for the chicken, you'd get an omega-3 egg that would be good for you and your heart. So we started to look at those kind of innovations where we could actually change the product of an egg. We went through all of these and we researched all of these. What we found in the end, that we discovered a single insight that related to every egg consumer, which was like striking gold, I suppose, when you're trying to find something innovative in a category that already exists. And that was, I care, but it's all too hard. And let me explain that. In the UK at that time, we had a vast variety of different categories of eggs. We had caged eggs, barn eggs, we had free-range eggs, we had organic eggs, and we had lots of individual ones in between. Consumers were confused. They were approaching the category, they just felt, I don't know what to choose. I don't know what the difference is between organic and free-range. I don't know what the difference is between a barn and a caged egg. And really, it wasn't really the key purchase decider for them, because they felt that all of these brands should be looking after the hens anyway. So what we discovered was the key insight that kind of related to all egg consumers was they just wanted the tastiest egg. We're all pretty selfish at heart when we're shopping. Yes, we'd love to know that animals are taken care of and everything, but our key purchase decision at that was, well, I want the best egg. Yes, please look after the animals that are laying that egg, but it has to be the tastiest one for me to buy it. So we made it easier for consumers to do the right thing. And that was the one strategic insight we had. We said to them, look, we'll give you the best egg. And by the way, it's come from hens that are really well looked after. So by proxy, they could feel like they were doing their little bit for welfare. And I'll take you through the strategic part of the thinking of how we got to that. And again, this is a very interesting line. Focus on what makes you different, not the same as everyone else. When you're innovating, that's one of the key challenges. If you're going to innovate as a brand, it's got to be those differences that you bring to the category, not what makes you the same as everyone else. I think it's Rice and one of the 22 immutable laws of branding when they say the more you narrow the focus, a stronger a brand becomes. Well, this is our model of what we use when we do a brand. Now, I'm sure everyone in the room here today has worked with brand onions, brand pyramids, brand keys. I think there were some people from Unilever here, brand love keys. All of those different models. This is ours. It's a brand eye. I think it's the only difference it has is that there's less words on this than you'll find on most models. We use a brand eye because it's about focus. And that's the only reason we've called it an eye, really. You can probably see that most of the headings on there are the same as the ones you have: proposition, values, personality, and a soul in the center, which is essentially the brand essence. So for our happy egg story, our brand eye obviously became our brand egg. We wanted to personalize it for the brand. So the proposition we discovered was, and it's a very simple one, that the happiest hens lay the best eggs. Who wouldn't believe that? Who wouldn't believe a happy hen lays a tasty egg? It was a very simple proposition. It's only 7 words. What we find, the sharper the proposition, the less chance there is for diversity on the brand when it starts to work through all the touch points. The substantiators, or the reasons to believe, were 5 steps to happiness, and I'll come back to those in a second. Benefits, what we usually find when you're talking about benefits of a brand, there's usually some functional benefits, and there's usually some emotional ones. Now, what you can consider on that is, if you can combine those together, then you've got a real benefit for consumers. And if you think of the benefit as, that's what consumers get. That's the benefit of buying into your brand. So this one was, well, we'll just make you feel happier about buying eggs. It's a very simple benefit, but it was one that really resonated with consumers. The 2 outer parts of the egg here, the values and the personality. The values are more commonly now called beliefs, brand beliefs. What we're finding with brands, and especially as we move forward, these are starting to become very important for brands where consumers want a relationship with that brand and not just about a reason to believe. The values, it was very interesting when we worked on the Happy Eggs one, because we found the farmers who looked after the hens called the hens the girls. That's what he called them. And it was always the girls come first. So as part of this project, we answered a very age-old question of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Well, in Happy Eggs, it's always the chicken that came first. It's the hens. And personality. When we look at personality, brands often fall into a mistake of, if we were a celebrity, we would be X. We don't like to do that. Personality should be about you. And the best way of working on a brand personality is probably to work out the obstacles your personality needs to overcome. So in a world where no one was talking about free range, or no one's having any communication with consumers, our personality had to be engaging. We had to start a discussion with consumers. In a grey-green world, we had to be vibrant. We had to walk into the room and bring it to life. We had to kind of light up the room. And we had to do it with a sense of fun because everyone else was being very serious in the category. So that was our difference. We would do things, and we wouldn't be fickle about it, but we would do it in a warm and engaging way. And the soul was Hentopia. Obviously, once you've got all of that, our brand essence was Hentopia, a place where all hens are happy. Going back to the substantiators, the 5 steps to happiness, and for those of you who was wondering who Freeda was, this was the character we created for the brand. Her name was Freeda Rome. It's a play on words, free to roam. Hopefully that won't get too lost in translation. But she was our very own happy egg, and we happened to turn her into a hen, a cartoon hen. The 5 steps to happiness were very important because it ran through everything internally and externally. Everyone involved in the brand had to do. So, for example, the perfect environment. Happy Eggs has a team of people who work on the farms to make it the happiest place for hens. So they design activity kits for the hens. They design climbing frames for them. Some of the farmers sing to the hens. We have no scientific proof if that lays better eggs or not, but they seem to be happy. And also, they give them mud baths, which hens like. So everything that is done on there, they plant trees on the farms. They have more open space than any other brand. Everything they do is to ensure that the hen is as happy as it can be. Another interesting one on the 5 steps to happiness was give something back. It was important because if you're going to work for the happy egg company, then you need to be happy about it as well. So what we wanted to do was the people internally to feel good that they were giving something back. So they do lots of works with local schools and local businesses, teaching them about the whole egg process and demystifying free-range farming. So they go to the, they take the hens into schools, they show them the hens, they take away that kind of, it was very interesting that the rest of the world didn't have this, but in the 1970s, the UK had an egg scare where a politician came on TV and told everyone that eggs were just filled with salmonella and eating more than one of them a week was bad for you. It's totally untrue. But it took about 20 years for the industry to recover from that one statement. The rest of the world carried on eating eggs because they knew that they were good for them. So moving on to the packaging then, well, we've got all of that insight. We had all of that strategy. Well, how does the package design look? Well, it's all about emotive semiotic simplicity. A brand name that demystified all of the husbandry policy in one name, the Happy Egg Company. We could have called it the Happy Hen Company. That would have taken it back to husbandry. The Happy Egg Company takes it back to what people wanted and taste, and about creating that tastiest egg. There was a deliberate, naive execution to this because we wanted to look made, not manufactured. We didn't want to feel like we were mass-produced. We wanted to feel small. There was real people involved in this brand, so we wanted it to look like that. The attitude to color we had, well, that was all about that perfect color of a great yolk that you can only get. Doing this project, we actually discovered the perfect Pantone color that people expect a yolk to look when they crack that egg open. And we just made the box that color. What could say more of a happier egg than a perfect yellow yolk box? And also, what better ambassador then than obviously Freeda Rome, who gave the brand an ability to not be so serious when we were talking about the serious stuff. So when we were talking about free range and when we were talking about animal welfare, that came from our brand ambassador, Freeda. So did Freeda find love? Well, if I take you back to our grey-green world, we injected a ray of sunshine into that, and as you can see, hopefully, how a dramatic effect it had on the category. And obviously, even with our own brands, we mark our own homework and put it through our brand love test. Well, was it distinctive? Well, yes, we started talking about taste in an aisle where everyone was talking about husbandry. Did it grab attention? Well, I think the yellow, you probably saw from the last slide, definitely did. And did we engage, strike a relationship? Well, yes, because we started to demystify the whole husbandry process for people. and also let them feel good about buying free-range eggs and about buying them on taste. So we converted a nation of 75% cage buyers in the UK to a nation of 70% free-range buyers. And just to give you a bit of context where we did that as well, we did that in a recession and at a price premium. The brand got to 80 million GBP in 2 years. And we've just launched in California. It's a very interesting market, California, for eggs, because they are half the population of the UK, but they eat twice as many eggs. By the way, that's not how free-range hens are in California. They don't surf. If only they did, that would be a great story for us. But they are on farms. I think the interesting thing with the Californian one, they didn't have any free-range qualifications out there or anything. So the happy egg promise worked globally because it wasn't about free-range. It was about happy, great-tasting eggs. So that shows when you get the core essence right of a brand, it can transfer globally, because those cultural semiotics we stepped outside of, and it allowed the brand to work across in California as well as the UK. And just in case you thought it was impossible to do again, and probably at the damage of Springetts sounding like we only design egg packs, but I'll show you a few more. We do a lot more. Noble came to us and they asked, could we do it again after the success of that? So we launched Posh Birds, which was gastro eggs. So it was all of the quail's eggs, duck's eggs, any eggs that could be used for more gastro cuisine fell under this brand. Another one we launched was Eggs for Soldiers. I'll have to explain this a little bit probably. In the UK, we have a very strange habit of cutting toasted bread into thin strips, which we call soldiers, and we dip into hard-boiled eggs. Hence the bread going into the egg for the medal. The great thing news about this brand is recently raised £1 million for the Help for Heroes, charity. And lastly, the one that won a Pent Awards last year, concept one, was Just Laid. We're still working with Noble to make this a reality because it has a few logistical problems, as you can imagine, of how Just Laid eggs can be. But what it shows that you can innovate structurally without changing structure, just with a great idea. Thanks very much. Any questions?
Paul, I have a question.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I have a question for you. So this egg, does it, do you need to open the box to get the egg, or does this egg come straightly from this opening? So can this egg comes out of this opening without opening the pack? That's a question.
That is a good question. What you have to do is, it's a normal egg box, so you do have to push the egg back in to open the box.
Oh, 不好意思，我刚没听太清，是要拿开是吗？要揭开是吗？不好意思，那个我英文水平有限，所以那个他刚刚是说打开这个盒子是吗？呀？哦 ，OK， 哦 ，OK， 好，谢谢。
Thank you very much. When I see this package, so I saw the Pent Awards 2014, all of them. So I found this is such funny packaging, and so this is funny pack and also childish pack. And so I showed it to my little sister and to ask her opinion. Because normally in China, that in the shopping markets, we also see those green and the gray word. And my little sister found this great fun. And she asked me this question, where does the egg come out? Straight from this opening? Or so do we still need to open the pack? So she gave me the idea that why this egg cannot drop straightly out of this opening. So this is like that this hen is laying eggs. So I think that my little sister is really creative. Do you agree to her?
Definitely. I think let her give us her name. She looks like she got a good job in brand design growing up. I think the interesting thing that you mentioned was humor and, you know, a childlike humor. I think it's something a lot of brand owners are scared of when we speak to them about using humor in design. It feels one of those taboo subjects. I mean, we always use a good example of why Unilever would buy Ben and Jerry's. Yeah. You know, I think it's not because they can't make good ice cream. They make some of the best ice cream in the world, but it's because they can't have that naive humor of, you know, two crazy guys who are in a shed making ice cream. And I think that it's very interestingly when you're talking about emotive cues in branding, humor, as we know, as an emotion, is a hugely strong emotion. I mean, and it's probably been used in advertising stronger over the years than it has in packaging. And we don't see that there should be any separation in that. If it can do it right, then humor can be just as strong on a piece of packaging, as long as you make sure you get those kind of emotive triggers right.
Thank you very much, Paul. So I will bring your comments to my little sister. So if you do have this pack that had the egg come straight out of this opening, that you need to reward her.
So that was great work. One question I have for the speaker here. Great design work. Just coming back on the egg packaging for the China market, for example, it's kind of a similar situation where it's a commodity. People have been eating it for centuries. So if you were to do the similar work for China, where the market is a little bit more functional in nature, where people give a lot of importance to functional ingredients and benefits, how would you kind of approach that for a market like China, using your experience from the UK, recognizing that the markets are completely different?
I think it's interesting you talk, and when you speak about the market being different, I think we'd go back to then and say, well, emotively, if we can get to that level, then it's not, because I think, and that's the problem. I think the problem with a lot of brands is that functionally, when they start to do anything new innovation, it's a lot of the time it's from a functional purpose. So it's a new piece of structural packaging, or it's a new improved recipe, or it's a new type of product. Well, what we find in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in Asia here, is that the retail people are very adept at copying functional attributes. In fact, they'll come and ask you to make them for them most of the time. And if you stay at that functional level, then you're only going to be, as I discussed earlier on, as soon as someone better functionally comes along, all of your consumers will jump to them. So we would say it's key to tap into an emotive feel for your brand. So unless you've got that love for a brand, then consumers are just going to only be with you until something better comes along. So I know there's a tendency to think the market is functional, but as A Bite of China and shows like that, you know, there's a huge passion for cooking in the Asian culture, and I think there's probably more emotive kind of language in Asian culture and cuisine than it is in UK. So if we can do it in the UK, we could definitely do it in here in China, I believe.